Imagine this. The Earth is one giant continent surrounded by a vast ocean. Volcanoes roar across the horizon, giant reptiles roam the lands, and the air itself feels heavy, almost alive. You hear a strange reptilian growl echo through the canyons. It's not a dinosaur, because dinosaurs haven't even evolved yet. Welcome to 300 million years ago, to the time before the dinosaurs, the Permian period, a world of supercontinents, supervolcanoes, and the greatest extinction in Earth's history. This is FactLabX, and today, we're traveling back in time to uncover what it would be like if you lived in the Permian period, the age before the dinosaurs ruled Earth. Part 1. A different world millions of years ago, the Earth didn't look anything like it does today. All the continents were fused into one massive landmass, Pangaea. From space, it would have looked like a giant brown scar on a blue planet. One enormous continent surrounded by a single global ocean called Panthalassa. The world was recovering from an ice age. The air was cooler, thinner, and drier than today. You'd need a jacket, and a good one, because global temperatures averaged just 4 degrees, 39 degrees Celsius. But as the ice began to melt, the Earth started to change. Forests returned, rivers carved through canyons, and the supercontinent became a living, breathing wilderness filled with creatures both fascinating and terrifying. The Permian world was unique. It was the bridge between ancient amphibians and modern mammals. And evolution was in full swing. Part 2. The early Permian. During the early Permian, the Earth began to warm up again. Volcanoes rumbled, releasing gases that trapped heat in the atmosphere. The once frozen world began to thaw. Swamps and forests stretched across vast plains, filled with new species of plants and insects. This is when life exploded and competition for survival began. One of the biggest innovations? Seeds. Before this, plants could only reproduce through spores, like ferns or moss. But around 290 million years ago, gymnosperms, the first seed-bearing plants, appeared. These cone-bearing trees spread like wildfire across Pangaea, and in their shade lived the earliest ancestors of insects we know today, including beetles, cicadas, and cockroaches. But not the ones crawling in your kitchen. These prehistoric cockroaches were massive, some as big as small birds, with wingspans of nearly 30 centimeters. Yet, as creepy as they were, these bugs weren't the real rulers of the land. Something far more fearsome was on the rise. Part 3. Dimetrodon, the pre-dinosaur predator meat, Dimetrodon, one of the most iconic creatures of the Permian. It looked like a dinosaur, but it wasn't one. In fact, Dimetrodon was more closely related to you than to any dinosaur. Picture a massive lizard, about 5 meters long, 16 feet, with a huge sail rising from its back. This sail wasn't just for show. Scientists believe it helped Dimetrodon regulate its body temperature. During the day, it would soak up heat from the sun like a solar panel, and at night, it would release that heat to stay warm. But don't be fooled. This creature was no gentle sunbather. Dimetrodon was an apex predator. With sharp, serrated teeth, a mix of blades and grinders, it could rip apart prey and crush bones with ease. If you ever stumbled into its territory, you'd be done before you could scream. It didn't chase for long. It ambushed. Swift, silent, and deadly. This was nature's first real super predator, the terror of the early Permian. Part 4. The middle Permian. Over millions of years, the Earth kept changing. The ice disappeared, the air grew warmer, and volcanoes reshaped the planet. Now, the average temperature was around 25 degrees, 77 degrees. New creatures evolved to take advantage of this warming world, creatures that were starting to look familiar. These were the therapsids, mammal-like reptiles that walked with their legs directly under their bodies. They were faster, stronger, and smarter than most reptiles before them. They had powerful jaws, sharp teeth, and keen senses. You could find different species across Pangaea, like Deuterosaurus, a 5-meter-long omnivore that likely scavenged and hunted smaller prey, or Lycanops, a smaller but agile predator that hunted in packs. They were the ancestors of mammals, the link between reptiles and us. For the first time, evolution was experimenting with warm-bloodedness, fur, and social behavior. It was the dawn of what would one day become mammals. Meanwhile, deep beneath the waves, life thrived too. In the oceans, you'd find ancient sharks, bony fish, and marine reptiles dominating the depths. Coral reefs were growing. The seas were alive with motion. For now. Part 5. The late Permian fast forward 30 million years. The Earth is now a furnace. Temperatures have soared to 28 degrees, 84 degrees. The atmosphere is thick with volcanic gases and the oxygen level has dropped to nearly half of what it is today. You'd struggle to breathe. Every inhale would feel like a slow suffocation. But even in this harsh climate, life found a way. Meet Lystrosaurus, a strange creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a pig. It was about 1 meter long, had a beak-like mouth, and dug burrows underground to escape the heat. Despite its odd looks, Lystrosaurus was one of the most successful species in history. It would survive the mass extinction to come. And then there's the cynodont, another mammal-like reptile covered in whiskers. It looked like a giant rodent and fed on insects and small animals. The cynodont would also survive and eventually evolve into the first true mammals. But these survivors didn't know what was coming, because the world was about to die. Part 6. The Great Dying. About 252 million years ago, everything changed. It began with fire. Massive volcanic eruptions tore through what is now Siberia, releasing billions of tons of carbon dioxide, methane, and ash into the atmosphere. The skies darkened, the oceans boiled, and the rain turned to acid. Without sunlight, plants died first, then the animals that ate them, and finally the predators that depended on everything else. This wasn't a single event. It lasted thousands of years. It was a slow, horrifying collapse of ecosystems worldwide. The global temperature plummeted. Then, as the gases built up, it soared again, far beyond survivable levels. The oceans lost their oxygen. Fish suffocated. Coral reefs turned into wastelands. By the time it was over 95% of all marine species and 70% of land species were gone. This was the Great Dying, the worst extinction event in Earth's history. It would take millions of years for life to recover. But from the ashes, new creatures would rise, and among them, the first true dinosaurs. So what would it be like if you lived in the Permian period? You'd see a wild alien Earth, where giant reptiles hunted the land, where plants evolved to conquer the dry soil, and where the very air could kill you. It was a time of change, destruction, and rebirth, a reminder that life on Earth has always walked the line between chaos and creation. But what if the Great Dying never happened? What if the dinosaurs never rose to power at all? That's a question for another FactLabX. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep exploring the universe of what if.